When Bright, the Netflix original movie starring Will Smith and Joel Edgerton came out, I didn't like it at all. I mean, the concept was cool, but the execution just left me wanting. When I saw that Netflix was releasing an anime version of the story, but it was set many years earlier, I got excited that this might create the story depth needed to be engaging. Bright Samurai Soul is now available on Netflix to stream, but should you? Izou, a one-eyed wandering ronin who has lost his reason to live, and Raiden, an orc who detests murder and hopes to leave a life of thievery behind, work to bring a young elf girl and the wand she carries to the land of the elves in the north. Standing in their path is the mysterious organization Inferni, which aims to obtain the wand and revive the Dark Lord, who intends to rule all of creation. While I don't watch a ton of anime, I do appreciate the art and can usually get into the stories. I love how they're able to craft more unique and bizarre worlds with details and effects that aren't as feasible in a live-action setting. For Bright Samurai Soul, the animation is unique, at least to me. It's a flat style that doesn't give a lot of shading, texture, or even depth a lot of the time. Now, even the colors tend to blend together, which reduces any sort of pop that scenes or characters might have. Something that certainly stood out to me is the camera movements. Now, they were film-like, but they made me a bit nauseous because some scenes were just moving all over the place, and more so just to show they could, not for any usable storytelling device. It is unique and it's an intriguing effect, but it just didn't jive too well with my eyes. Imagine in a live-action film where the camera will be handheld, but it's not shaky, and so it allows it to move around in a scene and capture different angles, even sometimes pushing in and out of closeness to the subject. The camera does exactly that in these sequences, but it has a very jarring effect that is sometimes not beneficial to the viewing experience. Sometimes it's a really cool effect that adds a different flair to what we're normally used to seeing in anime, though. If you're looking for a good amount of animated violence, there is plenty of it. The battles are gory with tons of bloody kills. And sometimes the camera work in these was great, as we will follow a character and then the camera will sway away as an arrow flies, only to then circle around just so that we can see where the arrow goes. It makes the fight sequences very immersive, which I thought was nice. Now, the story is pretty basic, where we have a character in possession of a powerful wand. Bad people want it to bring about some twisted sort of Armageddon, and they pursue the one with the wand. Basically, it's just a chase story with two reluctant bodyguards protecting someone who can't necessarily protect themselves. The simpleness of the story didn't bother me. What I was hoping for, though, was much more world building. We have all of these creatures living together. There's orcs, elves, humans, and I think a couple others, but I just wanted more about their interactions and their backstories. The movie's only an hour and 20 minutes long, so there's not a ton of time to cram in a lot of info, but I think the story still could have built out more of the world just to better immerse us in just everything. And even if there's not much world building that is included, the story that we do get is still fairly shallow and lacking. Motivations are mildly examined, I guess assuming that we are just going to be engaged in the story because there's a chase involved. Now, I wanted more from just about every interaction. Even when there was a climax between two characters, it felt rushed and then almost inconsequential. There was meant to be some real conflict between these two, but we never feel the weight that the story believes exists. It's almost as if the action sequences are the only thing really propelling the story forward. The beginning of the movie is pretty quickly paced, and something that adds to the excitement is the musical score that's underneath the action. There's a pretty intense battle sequence that takes place, and then you have this pounding and driving hard rock that is coursing through, which then combined with the action, it just makes this amp up the adrenaline. And there are other times through the movie as well where the score helps to increase the intensity of a sequence, and I felt it. It made my blood pressure rise some, and it created a good sense of urgency and immediacy to some of the scenes. Now, I like the character growth that we see from Izou and Raiden. Each of them makes changes in their lives to become more honorable, or at least characters that we want to root for. Now, I think Izou's is more earned because we get to see him work through some of his issues and come to terms with his past versus his present. With Raiden, it happens much more quickly, but also vaguely. We're not told a ton of his backstory, only that he is making some choices which allow him to go from villain to hero. This might be a small nitpick, but something happens towards the end of the movie that has a detrimental effect on a character. And then once the scene resolves, that character is back to being okay. There is no explanation for why or how this happened, which to me was bothersome, especially given the nature of the wounds. So in the end, Bright Samurai Soul suffers from the same story detriments as its live-action counterpart. The action was fun and it's executed well, but because of the lack of character development and world building, there's never really any peril or stakes that make this a compelling watch. I was disappointed in this because I really thought it would take the opportunity to craft a deep world for us, to create characters and lore that were worthy of investing in. Instead, we get a fast-moving action film with very little development and a quest that isn't terribly exciting or fascinating. So once again, the world of Bright has failed to capture my interest, despite it having some good potential. There's no sex or nudity, some profanity, and a ton of animated violence. I give Bright Samurai Soul 2.5 out of 5 couches. Were you a fan of the live-action movie? I mean, is this something that you've been looking forward to? I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film in the comments once you've seen it. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.